credits because they make a huge amount of difference to their lives, and the fact
people
that
on 50,000 a year shouldn't be getting tax credits.
Yeah.
Hello, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you keep going on and on about tax credits like there's some holy grail. I mean, I think that even people in this audience on 50,000 a year would say, excuse me, I'm willing to hand back my tax credit to help something else.
But the Institute for Fiscal Studies have actually said the Conservative plans to raise £400 million would take tax credits away from families on £30,000, not £50,000.
But you haven't answered my point, Ed, which is not about tax credits, it's about the macho form of politics, and you are as guilty of that as anyone.
You're sounding quite macho yourself.
Yeah, because I see this cabal, I see the way the whole election has been presented, and women have simply been airbrushed out.
Can I say the point I was going to agree with Janet on for a second, and that is the point about it being a boxing match. See, I think David Cameron did have an easier time today, but that was partly because he was like a boxer in the ring, dancing around, trying to avoid the actual question. On inheritance tax cut, time after time, on inheritance tax, time after time, he was asked to justify a priority for our country being to give £200,000 to the 3,000 richest families in the country, and he couldn't even address...
Let's not go back to the debate.
This is part of this.
Let's not rerun the debate itself.
That when the voters in the polls or whatever else come to a different conclusion from you, you think they're always wrong and you're always right.
No, let's not go over that. We have
I'm very happy to have a debate with Liam on the fairness of an inheritance tax cut for millionaires, because I don't think he can justify...
That wasn't the question, funnily enough. The woman there in the third row, please.
If it's true, and many people have agreed that Gordon Brown was the loser of these debates, how is it fair that Labour could still possibly get more seats in Parliament than either of the other two main parties this election?
Because it's totally unfair, and the whole system is going to have to change.
Well, in that, all right, hold on a second, Ed. Hold on, Ed. At this point, let's take a question from Rob Sloan, which picks up all those points and what Janet was saying about democracy. Let's have your question, Rob, please.
If politics has changed as a result of the leadership debates, is it a change for the better?
Now, carry on, Vince Cable, where you were. Has politics changed, and is it for the better?
Well, it has changed. I mean, I grew up in a world where we had a genuine two-party system. You had a tiny Liberal Party, but it was basically a two-party system. That's changed over the years. People are wanting something different. They've judged on the basis of experience that one or other of the two traditional parties doesn't give them what they want. They're looking for other things. We benefited from that, but there are other parties coming on the scene as well. And what is happening now is this utterly perverse position where representation in Parliament bears absolutely no relation to people's support in the country. It's fundamentally undemocratic. It's giving bad government. We face the possibility now that a party could win the next election with barely a third of the vote, a little over a third of the vote, 60% turnout, and there's 1 in 5 adults voting for them, facing a massive economic crisis, having absolutely no mandate. We cannot have a country like this. The voting system has got to be reformed so that it is genuinely representative.
Ed Balls, do you think politics... Do you think politics has changed as a result of the leadership debates, and if so, is it for the better?
Well, the first point is that 6 months ago, David Cameron thought he was going to be Prime Minister because he was ahead in the polls, and the debates have brought him right down. Secondly, Nick Clegg is more in the game, although that tends to happen in election campaigns when the Liberals get more exposure. I think I would say that, on the one hand, there's been more policy engagement on the night of the debates than I've seen before. That's a great thing. I think one of the problems we've had is that in the other 6 days of the week, there's been an obsession in the media with process, and in my experience, less focus on policy and policy debates than in any general election in my lifetime. And in that sense, I'm very concerned, because we must not sleepwalk into a change of government to a Tory or Tory Liberal coalition without understanding what it would actually mean for jobs, for families and for the future of our country. We must have proper scrutiny of policy.
You, sir.
Thank you. I'm a disabled working man. I have a family. And to get confidence for me to believe any of the parties to vote, how are you going to do that? All three of you, we've heard a lot this evening, but there's a lot of people out there that have lost confidence because of the economy.
And did the leadership debates in any way enlighten you or help you make up your mind?
I'm not sure. I really am not, David. I mean, there's lots of things were said, and certainly the comments from Gordon Brown last night for that poor lady were really bad. I said to my wife last night, what do you think now? If a politician can speak behind closed doors with the mic that's accidentally switched on, are they actually believing what people say? Are they listening to what people say? Well, I don't know.
Alex Salmond?
Well, the debates weren't allowed to get to the big issue of this election, which is a shared cuts agenda of all three London parties. I mean, Ed quoted the Institute of Fiscal Studies, and they're a great authority on economics. And they said this week in the report that 87% of the cuts planned by the Labour Party hadn't been specified in their manifesto. 82% of the cuts planned by the Tory Party hadn't been specified in their manifesto, and the Liberals were hiding 74% of the cuts in their manifesto. So if you get a debate like we had tonight, then clearly none of these three party leaders are going to address that point. They're not. Gordon Brown's not going to accuse David Cameron of hiding all these cuts. David Cameron will say, well, you're hiding cuts as well.
All right,
that whole major aspect,
that
major aspect of the election, as you well know, Ed, is being excluded.
We're coming on to the economy, so I'll hold you there if I may, Alex.
Presented a critique of all three parties' policy.
Just before we end on the effect of the debates themselves, the woman on the right there, and I'll come to you, Liam Fox.
I was just wondering, after we've had 3 weeks of wonderful debating, what difference it's going to show in the percentage of people who actually turn out and vote?
What do you think yourself?
I personally think, and I agree with Janet, it's, you know, you're watching 3 middle-class males have a go, that if there's a 5% increase, it'll be amazing. I don't think people will be so excited they'll be running down to the polling station.
And Liam Fox, can I